Okay, okay. Can everyone see the screen okay? So the Loop Lab is a nonprofit social enterprise that focuses on digital storytelling and workforce development. We have 2 offices in Cambridge and 1 in downtown Boston. And our mission is to empower young adults from prioritized neighborhoods from in and around Boston to pursue careers in video and audio production. Let me see. So can everyone still see the deck okay? Okay, thanks. So we have an academy program which focuses on education, where we provide training and fellowship. All apprentices are paid to be in the program. And so this is a little bit about our academy program right here. So basically, that's a year-long program that's a combination of in-person classes as well as an internship. And then this is the Loop Lab studio. And then this is where I'm primarily based. Our studio is in Kendall Square in Cambridge. And basically the purpose of the studio is that we focus on continuing education in a professional setting. So we work with a wide range of clients as well as artists, and while our portfolio is varied, we often find ourselves serving individuals and organizations whose mission aligns with our own. And I really like to partner with individuals and organizations who may not have access to these services, because video and audio production can be very expensive. So our services include video production, audio production, and photography. We also do a little bit of live streaming as well. And so in a nutshell, we're interested in serving others who are doing good work in the community while also operating as a continuing education initiative for our alumni as they're building their career. I like to say that we're kind of like a teaching hospital, and I'd say that we're a good fit for anyone that's looking for more than a transactional relationship. And so this is how you can get a hold of us and also see our work. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm also going to put my email in the chat here. So if anyone wants to get a hold of me, to talk about anything, whether it's a project you're working on, or if you just want some advice, I'm happy to answer anyone's questions after this presentation. So that is my email there in the chat. So now I'm going to continue on with basically the part of the presentation that I wanted to focus on. So one thing that I want to focus on in this presentation is how to be cost effective with your digital storytelling. If you're looking to do this yourself, or if you have very limited resources, I honestly think that the best way to be cost effective is to understand the process. Now, I would love to pose a question to this group, if that is okay. What I want to ask, and I'm just going to use video as an example, because digital storytelling can mean a lot of things. But for the purpose of this conversation, I think, I'm just going to focus on video for now. What are the steps that you think goes into making a video from start to finish? You can write your answers down in the chat, or you can say your answers verbally, whatever you're most comfortable with.
I think the first step would be storyboarding.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love this group already. Everyone is is really focusing on the brainstorming and the planning and the sequencing stage. And that's really the part that I want to talk about during this presentation, because a lot of times that is forgotten about, or it's overlooked, or it's a part of the process that unfortunately sometimes gets undercut, but then it affects your final product at the end of the day. Storytelling, being intentional about the story, knowing the story you want to share, brainstorming, summarize, planning and sequencing, brainstorming an idea. I love this. Population and need and outcome desired, and finding the shortest way to tell it. I think we should all create a think tank. You all are real, knowing your audience. I love how everyone is like focusing on the theme and the mission and the purpose of the deliverable, and not just the technical aspects. These are all really, really great answers. Involve the population you are serving in the planning from the very start. This is all wonderful. Does anyone else have anything that they want to contribute before I move on?
Hi, sorry, I'm in
Hi.
the car. I would say lead with your heart. So, you know, what you choose to capture on the video that sometimes is playing out in the room in the moment. Um, you know, I do this. Planning isn't my strong suit. I need to practice it more, but also it's that intuition that is led by what do you think is important.
Yeah.
That's what you're capturing, whether it might be really close up to the side of someone's face who's working, or so um I don't know how to really describe it, except really focusing on individuals or close up things about the content, about the story that you're capturing.
I think what everyone is saying is spot on. And I think the fact that you all are already understanding this, I think you all are going to make great content, because then it's just a matter of understanding the steps and the technicalities. But the fact that you all are thinking this way already is really great, because a lot of times I have conversations with people, and they're just thinking about what the camera is doing, or what fancy shots are we going to get. But at the end of the day, if you don't understand your theme or your audience or your intention, then your camera angles are really not going to matter. So thank you all so much for your very thoughtful answers. Are you all okay if I move on with okay, cool. Um, so, so I like to think of production in 4 phases. You have development, pre-production, production, and post-production. So what I'm going to say is that what I had prepared for this presentation is focusing on the steps involved in the first 2 phases of production, which are development and pre-production, because a lot of times those are steps that are overlooked. And if they're done effectively, can save you a lot of money, as well as protect the creative integrity of your project. But once we get into more questions, if you have any questions or need a breakdown of another phase of production, I'm also happy to do that. So the first phase of production is development, and development is all about shaping the creative. When creating any type of media, whether it's video or audio, or even if it's a photography series, it all starts with an idea. And then it's all about shaping the idea to get as much fleshed out on paper as possible, or your computer. I say paper because I'm a little old school. So for me, I like to start with a creative brainstorming session where it's me and maybe a few other people, and we're just jotting ideas down on a whiteboard. I love this phase because at the very beginning, you don't have to think about what your constraints are, because a lot of times our constraints are budget, time, and resources. But I highly encourage anyone, when you're starting to develop material for a project, try not to think about that first. Think about what the idea could be. So I really like to just kind of spitball and get as many ideas down as possible. I like to use a whiteboard. Some people like to use Post-it notes. You use whatever tools make sense to you. And what I found is that usually everyone knows when they've stumbled upon a good idea, because that idea will spark the most conversation and it feels easier to build upon than maybe some of the other ideas. That's usually when I know, okay, this is maybe the idea that we should go with. But you try all of the others out too. That is like the purpose and the beauty behind creative brainstorming. And then from there, what I like to do is that I like to take that snippet of an idea and put the idea into a sentence. And usually that sentence conveys the idea, but when someone hears the sentence, they should get the idea that you're wanting to get across, but you don't give everything away in the sentence. You kind of want to leave the person wanting more and to ask more questions after that one sentence. I would say that's the purpose of what that is. So I take an idea, I put the idea into a sentence, and once I really feel solid about that one sentence, in the film and television world, like this is known as a log line, and you see this in marketing materials. You can even go on to IMDb and look up any project, and that 1 to 2 sentence blurb is your log line, and this is very similar. And then from there, I put that idea into 2 sentences. And then once I feel, and usually like maybe that second sentence conveys some of the things that you all were bringing up in the chat, intended audience, what is the tone, what's the theme, what is the mission behind the idea. And then once I feel really good about the 2 sentences, then I take those 2 sentences and I put together a synopsis of the entire idea. And this is where you really get to test, just if your idea really has legs or not. Because when you're forming your idea into a synopsis, which can be 1 to 2 paragraphs, you really have to think about what is the story that you're trying to tell in your project, and it has to have a beginning, middle, and end. And I really like to tweak that until I feel like that makes sense to myself as well as maybe to others on my team. And then when that's working well, I take that synopsis. And I actually also want to pause and say that I know what it sounds like I'm talking about is really intended for bigger projects such as movies or TV shows. But I even follow this project with like a very simple 30-second PSA where it's like 1 character and 1 location. I think process is process, and you learn so much when you follow it. So once I feel really good about the synopsis, that's when I will go to outline. And what my outline includes is like each location and setting, along with what the character or what the subject is doing if it's unscripted, and what they're saying. And if there's more than 1 scene, then I will also write that out. And then once I feel really good about the outline, then I will put that outline into a script. Now, has everyone seen a script in standard screenplay format? I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna show you one really quickly. Hold on 1 second. I'm gonna share my screen. Give me 1 moment. Okay. Okay, can everyone see my screenplay? So this is Everything Everywhere All at Once. And that's just a title page. But you look here, right? And you see next to each number, there's a scene there's a location that's basically written out in all caps. That is where we know our scene takes place. And then under that are your action lines. And sometimes it's just describing what's in the environment. And then say, even if you move down to scene 2, where it has the same apartment, but now it's the morning instead of the night. This is where we start to introduce characters, and we see who the character is and the action lines of what they are doing. And then below that, then we start to get into the dialogue of the characters and what they're saying. And so when I'm putting together an outline, I will put it together in this format, but not have the dialogue. I'll just have everything in a paragraph of what is going on in that scene. So I'll just, kind of go through a few pages. And then a lot of times if there's, more than one language being spoken, you have the two languages side by side. And so this is what a standard screenplay looks like. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And I will use this format, regardless if it's a 30-second PSA of just one subject in one location, and even if the content is unscripted. The reason why I like to write in a standard screenplay format, regardless of what I'm working on, is because the script is my main tool to execute my production plan as a producer. Sometimes, especially in the advertising world, people won't write in a standard screenplay format. Once they maybe have their script down in a Word document, they'll then jump to storyboarding right away. And maybe this is just because of how I was trained, because I went through a traditional film school training program. I like to, in addition to the thumbnail storyboards, to also have the script, because it helps me execute my plan as a producer. And what I mean by that is that scripts are similar to blueprints of a house. So once I'm done writing a script, then I put my producer hat on and I jump in and I do a script breakdown where I start counting locations, characters, props, everything that's tangible. So I know what to prepare for production, and I can have a general understanding of how much this will cost. I will show you just a little bit of what a scripts breakdown looks like. Everyone does them differently, but I'll show you this one and I'll kind of try to break down from here how I do mine. So I'm going to show, can everyone see that okay? Okay. So this script breakdowns are very colorful. A lot of times, like, I will have like different colors for a character, like each character will have its own color. I will also, use a different color to, underline any props that are written in the script. And then also too, your locations, which are in all caps, are a good indicator of how many locations you need to obtain to make your video come to life. Now, sometimes it's just one, but if you write a scene, even if a scene takes place in one house, but there, oh, I'm sorry, was that a question? Okay. So even if a scene takes place in one house, but or I'm sorry, a project takes place in one house, but you have different scenes happening in different rooms, you also have to plan for that, because that means every time you have to move camera, you have to move lights, you have to reset. There are different props in each room. So that's why this breakdown is so important. And that's why, and because of this breakdown phase, that's why I like to write a script in standard screenplay format, even if maybe it doesn't seem necessary to everyone, because it's just a short project maybe. So so in development, after the script is written, and once you're working on the script breakdown, then a lot of times that's when the director will then take the script to put together a storyboard. So they can either show the client or whoever the stakeholder is how things will play out visually. And I think the storyboard is also a great tool to figure out your shot list, because you can literally go in and you can count the number of shots that you need in a scene, as well as the number of shots total. And when you're putting your storyboard together, there are times that maybe you're using the same shot, but in different parts of the scene. So it's really important to know how many to do that shot list based on the storyboard, because then you'll have a really good sense of what your scope is, as well as your schedule, when you have the shot list that you get from the storyboards along with the production breakdown that you get from the scripts. I was going to keep going, but I feel like that's a lot of material there. Does anyone have any questions about the scripting and the storyboarding phase and the producer's breakdown? No? Okay. I'll keep going then. And so there are a few other tools in addition to scripts and storyboards to convey an idea visually. A deck is also a great tool for, say, anything that's larger in scope or episodic in nature. A deck is also great for people that need a visual tool and unfortunately maybe don't want to read a script. Has anyone seen the deck for Stranger Things?
Mm-mm.
I will show it to you. And this is all, you can find some good stuff online if you know certain websites to go to. Google has a whole TV site where you can find stuff. So I am going to share. Okay. Okay. Can everyone see this? Okay.
Mhm.
So
Cool.
this is the Stranger Things deck that the Duffer Brothers used to sell their show to Netflix. And as you can tell, it was originally called something else. It was called Montauk, and it took place somewhere else too. You can tell right away that they're going for a very specific tone, just visually, like just using this like 1980s, paperback style. So we're gonna just go through this. Okay, so this is the introduction. If you're gonna make a deck, you want to be very intentional, and you also want it to be visual. That yes, there has to be text, especially if it's a big idea, but really also make sure that you're very intentional with your photos and your artwork. So here, this is an introduction to the project. It says, just the number of hours. So it's an 8-hour sci-fi horror epic. We get a sense of the setting. And we also get a sense of the tone, and the Duffer Brothers here even use some comps from other movies and TV shows. And I think they really, nail it here with this last sentence, that Montauk is a love letter to the golden age of Steven Spielberg and Stephen King, a marriage of human drama and supernatural fear. And I can also, because this is a PDF, I can also send this over to Dominique. I can find a way to get this PDF over to you so you all have it as a reference. And so then here, this is the backstory of, what inspired the Duffer Brothers to make Stranger Things. And what's interesting here is that when we go back to, and when we get into talking about pre-production a little bit, for those of you that have seen the show, they had to change their setting. Stranger Things does not take place in Montauk, and it's not, the name of the base isn't Camp Hero. And we don't know why that is. Maybe it's probably a budgetary reason, and maybe it's a legal reason too. So this page gives some backstory, and it's always nice to have a little bit of backstory that's based on, some level of truth. And then, once we have, the introduction and the backstory and the inspiration, I would say that the Montauk Project is very much the inspiration for this story. Now we kind of start to get into, the introduction of the story that the Duffer Brothers want to tell. And, this is where we're introduced to the characters of Will and Mike and Jonathan and Joyce and Eleven. And there's always, like, you can tell that all of the pictures, they're from different movies, but they all follow the same theme. And then structure is very important. I mean, even if you're making a video, say for your organization or for a corporate video, if you're making a series, it's really important for your audience to understand what the structure is. Like, I don't think this is just for television shows. I think anything that's episodic in nature, an audience needs to understand the structure. And so here, there's the structure of the episodes, and then what is going on in each episodes. And they viewed the first season as like one 8-hour film. And basically the first 3 episodes were the first act, and then the middle episodes were the second act, and then the last 2 episodes were the final act. And so that's how they structured it. Structure can really, with storytelling, structure can really help you, just kind of figure out what's important to your story. And it's telling your story in a language that the rest of the audience will understand. And so now we have tone and style. I think tone and style is a great thing to convey in a deck if you choose to use a deck as a selling tool, because we try to convey tone in a script, but tone is not always conveyed in a script. And then even with storyboarding, you can, unless if the person that's illustrating the storyboards is an exceptional artist, I think sometimes it's really hard to convey tone in storyboards. And tone is really important. And so everyone wants to know what the tone is. And you don't just convey the tone with the tone page of your deck. You have to convey it through the entire artwork in your deck, if that makes sense. So you see that all of these visuals, even with the choice of, creating the deck as a 1980s paperback book, that's all a stylistic choice to convey tone. So it's very, very clear. And I think it's really important to, whatever project you're trying to get off the ground, to make it as clear as possible if you can, because it's something that people haven't seen yet, you know, so you're asking people to peek into your imagination a little bit. That's why I say with this phase, get as much on paper as you can, so the initial idea doesn't get lost. And then this is genre. Tone and genre are also very, very different things. And tone really is more so like, how do you, like, what does this feel like? But yeah, they marketed it as a supernatural horror series. And this is a series that has evolved over time. I think because they realized that, you know, with all of the different characters on the show, they had the unique opportunity to appeal to use genre to appeal to a lot of like different kinds of people and age groups. So with television shows, and this may not apply to the project that you're working on, but with television shows especially, a lot of time is spent on these decks breaking down the characters, because you're spending a lot of time with these people. So, you know, studios or whoever the stakeholder is wants to know who are these people that we're spending 8 hours with. And so basically this narrative is told through 3 different groups of people. You have the kids, and then, you know, we break down who all of the kids are. And then 11, you know, gets their own page, because they're like the outsider as well as the link to all of the other groups of people. And then you have the teenagers. And then you have the adults.
This is great.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I'll make sure this PDF gets over to you so you can have it as a reference. It's on the internet. They released it for people to learn, so it's fine. It's fine for all of us to have it. But yeah, I thought it was great too, you know, because a lot of times, you know, these types of documents, they're just kind of tucked away at production companies and studios, and, you know, you're not supposed to share them. But, you know, especially with something that's been released already, it's like, why not? It's a great way for people to learn. You know, this is the Duffer Brothers sold a very profitable and successful series. So, you know, why not use it as a teaching tool for other people? So I think one thing that this deck, you know, needed to explore, which it didn't, because you're going to see after this, the franchise potential, that's the last page of the deck. For some reason, usually decks also go into who the villains are. And this deck does not do that. And I'm not sure why. You know, maybe the only thing I can think of is maybe they didn't know what the monster would look like yet. But I think it would have been nice to include, you know, more information on the villains. But other than that, I think it's a great deck, and I'll get that over to you if you're all interested in having it. So that's the deck. And then the last development tool that I think can be really useful is a tone clip. Does anyone know what a tone clip is? So especially if you're someone that likes to edit, and even if you don't edit, you don't have to edit at a high level to put together a tone clip. So basically what a tone clip is, it's taking found footage. And what I mean by that, it could be anything. It can even just be footage that you download from YouTube, from maybe visuals that are somewhat similar to yours to tell your story, and you put that over music. So you get a sense of, so the person that, you know, is supporting your project kind of gets another visual cue of what your project could be. So that is what a tone clip is. And the interesting thing about tone clips is that sometimes directors will put together a tone clip to audition for a directing job at a studio. One interesting story regarding tone clips is that is everyone familiar with, even if they didn't see it, the Daredevil movie from 2003 with Ben Affleck and Jennifer Garner? So that movie did not do well, because the world of Daredevil is very dark and gritty, but the studios at that time wanted to keep a PG-13 rating to bring more people to the box office. But the thing is, with that movie, they didn't really commit to another tone either if they weren't going to go really dark and gritty. And so what ended up happening was that the movie ended up kind of being a mishmash of like some comedic moments with some darkness and action, and people just didn't really know what to make of it. And what's funny is that when people were mad about how the 2003 Daredevil movie turned out, another director who auditioned for the job with the studio with the tone clip ended up releasing his tone clip publicly on YouTube, and people loved it. Suddenly everyone was saying this is what the movie was supposed to be. And so when Daredevil was reimagined as a TV series back in 2015 for Netflix, you can see the similarities in tone between the tone clip from the director who was not hired back in 2013 and the Netflix trailer. I think for the sake of time, I have the Daredevil trailer, I have the tone clip, and I have the Netflix trailer. I don't think I'm going to play those. I mean, also too, I feel like there's some violence in these trailers, but I'm going to just put them in the chat, just if anyone wants to look at that as an example, later. So then you can copy and paste that. And the tone clip from another director, that's the link of the tone clip that someone used to audition for that job. That clip, just FYI, is very, very violent. And so I just want to put that out there as a trigger warning for people. I think instead what I'm going to show to like convey tone is are two clips from Harry Potter. So the first clip is just the theatrical trailer. And then the second clip is the same story reimagined as a teen comedy that someone made as a joke. And it's both really from a lot of the same footage. But I think I just want to play those just so you all have an understanding of how important it is to nail tone, and how tone can really, just move your project in different directions. So I'm gonna pull that up, and then I'm gonna share the screen. Just give me 1 second. Okay. Can everyone see my screen okay? Okay. All right.
This is no matching. Good job. Right off.
Deirdre, I'm sorry if something is playing, it's not playing on our end.
Oh, it's not playing? Okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. You know what? I will sorry about that. I will also put those two clips in the chat, just kind of as a takeaway, and that will just give us more time to, for me to answer questions. So I'm just going to quickly go ahead and put those in the chat. So this is so this is the trailer. And then the second link is going to be kind of like the spoof Harry Potter reimagined as a teen comedy. And I think just the key takeaway there, like I said before, is that it's the same movie, even some of the same footage in both trailers are used, but you know, your tone can really tell a very different story. So that's something that I think you want to really nail right away, and even early on in development. And you know, your tone clip, if you decide to go that route, could be a really good way for you to play with tone and to nail down your tone, so then everyone on your team understands just kind of what your artistic intent is. I think before I move forward into pre-production, does anyone have questions about development?
I do. I'm not sure if this is on the right track, but what about short form and social media campaigns and such? I'd imagine some of this planning and, you know, building a story intentionally applies, but is there anything you could say about that for organizations trying to, you know, build their brand and awareness and excitement?
I think that's a great question. I think, you know, the planning of, you know, gathering the video and the stories that you want to tell are the same. I think with social media, because it's shorter snippets, you kind of like, I would almost think of that in episodic form, you know, like kind of like, what story do I want to tell about this today? What do I want to tease today? And then, you know, especially if you're telling people, come back the next day, there's going to be more on this, then what's the second part of that story? And that's how I would build your social media calendar, kind of like with a narrative lens. Like the planning for the shooting and all of that, I think is the same. I mean, I think a lot of times with social media, you don't really need to have a big lighting setup or anything. But in terms of building out your story, I think it's very similar. But look at your episodes as, you know, days of posting, and what is it that you want to tease out on each of those days. Does
Thank
that
you.
make sense?
Yes,
You're welcome.
yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Is there an ideal number of episodes for this kind of form?
For social media, I mean, I don't know if it's like ideal number of episodes. The one thing that I've noticed with social media is that you have to be consistent. So if you're campaigning for something, or if there's something that you're like wanting to reveal, you know, just if you're going to post every day or say that you're going to post every day, then post every day. And I think too that a lot of times people will see how active your social media pages are by how often you're posting already, and then that's the expectation. But I think consistency is key. And then in terms of the storytelling, I think to remain consistent, you have to build out these stories in advance. So if you know that you have an event or a grand opening or whatever it is that you're wanting to reveal to your audience in October, then start planning that out during the summer if you can. Does anyone have any other questions before I move forward to pre-production? I want this to be a dialogue and for you all to get everything that you want out of the conversation. Okay. All right. I'm gonna move on to pre-production if that is okay. And if you find that later on that you have a question about development, or maybe something in pre-production sparks a question about development, then please by all means. So now I'm going to move forward into the pre-production phase. This is your prep phase. I think this phase is so important. A lot of times people underestimate the importance of pre-production and how it can elevate your video. And I think the best way for me to explain pre-production is to show some examples of the process. And so I want to show you 2 sequences from a short film that I made that screened at Comic-Con that if you look at it, it looks very expensive, but in all actuality, it was very inexpensive to shoot minus the VFX. So I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to show 2 sequences total. I'm going to show 1 sequence at a time, pause, and then talk about it before showing the next. I had a question for my team here that's helping me so much with this presentation. Thank you so much to Dominique and the interpreters and everyone here that is that's supporting this endeavor. We're all working together as a team. With the videos, Dominique, I don't know if you're online. Were people able to see the videos but not hear them? Or I can ask those that are listening and watching too. Were you able to see the video but you couldn't hear the video?
It was just the Harry Potter one. There was some difficulty, like I think it was like frozen or something on our end.
Oh, okay. All right. I'm gonna try to play a Vimeo video and then you all let me know if you're able to, if you're able to see the experience and hear the experience. So okay, so I'm gonna grab this video here. I want to say in this first clip, there is no actual violence in this sequence, but there is an explosion and people are distressed. So I just want to put that out there as a trigger warning. Does anyone prefer that I just like scrub through the video instead of not play it? Okay. Okay, just let me know. Okay, so I'm gonna share my screen here. And let's see. I'm gonna start playing. Let me know if this works for everyone. It's only gonna be about a minute. Is this good?
I see something, but it's not moving.
Yeah, I think it's the same as last. I think it's just the animations, I guess.
Okay. What if I scrub through and just like hold on a photo like that? Can you guys see that?
Let's see. Are you doing it right now?
Like that. Can you guys see an image?
The
No,
picture,
it's frozen. Yeah, it's the same picture as we're seeing right now.
it's a sky, picture of a sky.
It's just the sky picture. Okay. All right. You know what? I will also include this video in the chat, but I will talk about the scene a little bit. So this was, I'm going to stop sharing. So this was a short film that I made that screened at Comic-Con. Do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to see if I can just, because it was frozen on the sky for you all. I'm going to just see, I found another place to pause. I'm going to try to share one last time and see if you can just see the picture that I'm paused on.
Okay, this is a picture of a protest. Is that the
Yeah.
picture you want us to see?
Yes, yes. So do you know what this is? This is fine. We can just, we can just talk about this. So what I wanted to talk about with this scene is that this scene took a lot of planning, but it actually didn't cost really much in the way of money at all. So there are 2 main actors that are closest to camera. Their heads are kind of facing you in this shot. those two actors were paid. And I would say other than the actors and then the production design materials to make the protest signs, as well as the graffiti painting on the building wall, those were the only areas where I had to spend money on this scene. And I think, as you know, most of us, we don't really have a lot of resources to, you know, spend a lot of money on video production. So I kind of really like to break down how I do things to make them look more expensive than they really are. But the key to this is, if you don't have a lot of money to spend on your shoot and you want to do something that's of a larger scale, it's so important to prep. So there were about 15 extras who volunteered their time. And I of course needed about a month to plan so I could book people and know that people would show up. Because it wouldn't be believable to have a scene like this if I planned at the last minute and just put a flyer out and then on the day of shooting, no one came. So you want to, like with shoots like this, you want to plan in advance. And especially if you don't really have much in the way of money to give people, it takes time to find others who will donate their time. But you can find people if they believe in what you're doing, and if you give them enough time. And I would say the production vehicles that you see on the left, and then also too, you see some people in a military vehicle on the right. I'm sorry, I said production vehicle. I meant to say military vehicle both times. Those were donated. I found someone that was willing to donate military vehicles. Also to the location was also donated to us. And ironically, the owner of this location was tearing down this building. And so he said to me, you can do whatever you want. And so we were able to take spray paint that you could wash off and like put graffiti and stuff on the walls. We asked for permission to do all of this in advance, but this was how we were able to build out this scene. Also too, you're not able to see, but your camera coverage is really important in like conveying the storytelling. So with a scene like this, we wanted it to feel like there were hundreds of people there, but I only had 15 extras plus 2 main actors, 17 people. So what we did, and this was a collaboration between myself and the director and the cinematographer, instead of using a tripod, we decided to go with a handheld camera, you know, and we didn't have like a rig or anything. It was like a shaky camera. And that was very intentional for the storytelling because we wanted it to feel chaotic. And then on top of that, we also didn't shoot a lot of wides. We shot a lot of close-ups and used a lot of production design to make it sound like there were a lot of people behind those that we were shooting. So we wanted to give a claustrophobic feel to the scene. And what's interesting about this scene is, you know, just like this was a lot of prep, but as a producer, even if you want to do a lot of prep and, you know, you always want to respect the creative vision, that also doesn't mean bowing down to every little thing that your director requests. So the director for this film, who is a good friend of mine, originally wanted this scene shot in downtown. And this scene was shot in Tallahassee, Florida. And he wanted to shoot the scene downtown so it felt like a protest. And the thing is, I couldn't get the permits to shoot downtown. We shot this film in January, which is when legislative session is going on at the Capitol. There was no way that I was going to be able to shoot downtown. I also didn't really think it was safe having like people in the streets without having roads closed off and that sort of thing. And so this was a situation where I just went back to the director and said, you know, I'm able to get 99% of what you want, but like this downtown scene, we have to rethink this. And I think like we just went back to the drawing board, and sometimes it means rewriting the script a little bit. And we put our thinking caps on and we found this location. And, you know, the way that this scene turned out, it actually turned out better than the original idea. So that is that is like the prep that I did for that scene. I'm gonna scrub through and find a screenshot for the other scene. So let's see. I think I stopped sharing my screen. So I'm gonna go back. Thanks for your patience with the technicalities. Let's see. So I'm gonna go back to Vimeo and hold on one moment as I'm gonna just pull up a screenshot from the second scene that I wanted to show you. And it was really just this shot anyway. So let's see. So 8:30. Okay, there we go. All right, I'm going to share my screen again. I'm just going to go. Okay, does everyone see this shot on a really long bridge? So this movie, given the premise of the film, has a lot of VFX in it. This was the one shot that people remember after seeing the film, and you know, they always ask, you know, they think that maybe like part of that bridge behind the actors is a VFX set extension. And that is not the case at all. This, like, we shot this on a 4-mile long bridge that stretches from Apalachicola in Florida to St. George Island in Florida. And this bridge is the only way to get on and off of St. George Island. And the director really wanted this bridge. In that shot, he thought it conveyed, he thought it conveyed, you know, just the travel. And so I had to find a way to get this done because I wanted this shot in the movie too. And actually, a lot of people asked us, you know, did you wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning and, you know, sneak this shot and leave? And I said, no, we did not do that. I also, like, for safety, I didn't want to do that on a bridge that was 4 miles long. And it's the only way for people to get on and off an island. So, but also too, this shot did not cost any money. This is a free shot. And so how I accomplished this was that I started making calls at the Florida Department of Transportation, and I found someone who was willing to collaborate with me. And that gentleman was on set with us that day. He was there for safety. And then in addition to that, he helped me coordinate with the local police department. And what the police department was able to do for us was to close down this bridge on both sides for 10 minutes. For 10 minutes. And so, and we had like a very small crew, and we're in the middle of the bridge too. We have nowhere to go. And so the funny thing is that this director and cinematographer that I like to work with, they're extremely meticulous and they really like to take their time. And so usually when I'm building out a schedule for them to work, I put in a lot of time so they can work at their pace. And this is where sometimes, like, as a producer, as a stakeholder, you kind of have to know when to nudge your team a little bit. And this was an instance where I had to say, you know, look, we only have 10 minutes. And when those 10 minutes are up, we are leaving, whether we capture anything or not. And that pushed them to get this shot. And it's the shot that people talk about in the film. So I guess this is all to say that you can achieve quality at low cost if you know, find like good people to collaborate with and utilize your resources. And so I think a really important part about pre-production is location scouting. I have more to say, but I want to take a moment to see if anyone else has questions, because I know we only go for about another half an hour, and I want to make sure people's questions are being answered. Does anyone have questions? No, okay.
In the chat.
I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Uh,
hi.
If you were, say we're using this as a social media introduction to our program, and you were to use some known music, a clip or hook of music, how do you do that? Is there some sort of permission you have to get, or is it social media? So I look at, the equivalent on TikTok or something like that, where you have a familiar song that's like ear catching, and then that sort of hooks the viewing population in. Is there regulation for that?
I think that's a great question. A lot of times in like longer, format projects, there is like you have to get permission, I think both from the artist as well as the publisher of the song, and that can get very expensive. I do believe that there is a rule that anything 10 seconds or under, you're not scrutinized for. And I know that like people will use songs, like popular songs all the time. I think you get into more trouble if you're making money off of the post.
Oh, good to know. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. That's a great question. Let's see. I think we have a few questions in the chat. So could you discuss your use of music? Let's see. Need to go in another meeting. Okay. A few people had to run, but this is getting recorded. I can talk a little bit more about pre-production. If no one else has questions, I just want to make sure that I'm answering people's questions and I'm not just talking the whole time.
Could I ask one more question? When you're creating a deck, do you have an optimal length of time that people have for an attention span? Is it supposed to be like a short film, or is it supposed to be like 2 commercial lengths? Or well, there must be sociology data where you get your point across, you convey the tone, but the length of time, do you optimize that for the project?
Do you think with the deck, are you meaning like number of pages, like a target number of pages that the deck should be?
Right. Like where does the viewers fatigue begin? Because
That's a great question, because honestly, I've seen a lot of decks, and not one is the same. I've found that the decks that are the most successful have more visuals and less text. And I think like around 10 pages, if it's a piece where you're needing to introduce characters or people that are going to be featured, if it's unscripted or if it's nonfiction, is a good target length. And then if there isn't really a need to introduce people, or maybe you're just like featuring one person, that I think even shorter than that is okay. Sometimes it's not even about the number of pages. I've just found that people have fatigued really quickly if there aren't enough visuals and it's just heavy text.
okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And then how long does a copyright last for a song? I will have to get back to you with that with more information. I think it depends. I don't know if like you purchase it for like, if you can purchase for a certain length of time, or, if it's just kind of like a blanket, you buy all outrights this, it lasts for so long. Is it okay if I follow up, even in an email with an answer to that question?
Yes, that's really thoughtful of you to even offer that. I was more or less asking if you had your own musicians, your own singers, and you're filming that or just recording it to go behind images that you own. And the songs are old, like the happy birthdays, the alphabet songs, the kids songs.
Oh, yeah. Like if it's
So
public domain, that's different. If a song is in the public domain, then you don't need to get permission.
Okay, and how many years is that with the public domain, that something is automatic, or can people renew copyrights?
You know, that's a great question. I feel like after a certain number of years, something like a lot of times I've seen material automatically enter the public domain, but I think maybe that's after, you know, maybe the owner, you know, has passed and maybe there isn't anyone that's part of the family estate anymore that's renewing the material. That's also something that I can get back to you.
Hi,
Great.
I-
This was so helpful. Thank you.
Yeah,
could
you're
be-
welcome.
Hi, this is Bithia Israel. I don't know if I'm correct, but I think it's 100 years.
Yeah, I was thinking something along those lines too. Yeah, I'm curious for those that have estates, like how that impacts if like this, if the family, you know, comes in and, you know, doesn't want it to go into the public domain, if there's something that has to be filed. But, you know, things like happy birthday and, you know, ABC, you know, like happy birthday, you can just have your own performers, I think, perform it. But thank you for whoever echoed the 100 years. Collaborative effort here.
You're welcome. And I would check on happy birthday though too. Have we arrived?
Right. That's I'm gonna send an email to everyone where the subject is happy birthday. And also too, if you think of a question after this is over, you know, I'm sure there's a way to get those questions over to me and I can send back a thoughtful answer. Are there any other questions that I can answer now, or I can talk a little bit more about pre-production? Is hearing about pre-production helpful?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Could I ask one more question? If
Of course.
you're filming a crowd, say we have a clinic, so I'm picturing like filming the busyness of a clinic.
Yes.
All of the people in the crowd scene, do they have to be blurred, or they all have to sign something, or is it can you just film it as a crowd scene? Like if you want to show how busy this clinic is in certain parts of the day or something like that, can you just randomly photograph that and then use that clip as a representative of people, not individuals? Or does that limit you? Like you have to say to everybody, I'm going to film this and it might show up. I mean, I don't even know how I would explain it in Portuguese, but yeah.
I would, you know, I think it's always good. And thank you for that question, because this was something that I was going to bring up. And I think it's always best when it comes out in conversation. I think any sort of talent release is really good to have, because you don't want someone complaining that they're in your video, you didn't get permission and you can't cut around it, and so then you have to take it down. I like to have everyone individually sign a talent release. Sometimes another thing that you can do is, if you can't get everyone, like sometimes you can put up a sign that says, hey, we're filming in this area, and if you don't want to be filmed, then maybe move to a different area. So that's sometimes like things that are done like with really, really large crowds, and you just can't get releases from everybody. But I think like any sort of talent release is helpful. I think a location release is also really helpful. And then crew deal memos for those that are working on your production, even if it's staff members, you know, and you're not like paying a subcontractor or whatever. I think just having those three things will really protect yourself. But going back to the talent release, I've seen people put up signs if they can't get a release from everybody.
Oh, thank you very
Sorry.
much.
Yeah, you're
What
welcome.
are those three? Oh, sorry. What are those three things again? Talent release and
Location release and a crew deal memo.
Can I ask a favor, Deirdre?
Sure.
If you have a blanket release, can you send that to us?
Absolutely. I think I have a blanket location release. And then it's so funny. I was trying to find like what's a good blanket talent release and crew deal memo. That I will probably follow up with, but that's the location. That's the location release. And I went to FSU, so it's okay that I shared that.
I also want to say in response to what Chris had just asked, I've recently been to an event where they were going to be filming. And
Yeah.
when I signed in, it was right there on the sign up. We're going to be filming, blah, 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 blah. And you're signing in and you're acknowledging that you saw that statement. So that's a nice way to do it too, if you can have a sign up.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I agree. Yeah. I think any sort of record, if possible. I know some situations are really hard. But just so you can contact people if you need to. And, I think just with any sort of, when you're prepping for any sort of production, you just want to leave like as little room for surprise as possible. So then you're protected during production as well as post-production. And then you're also protected when you distribute your material, whether that's on your social media channels or anywhere else.
Deirdre, can I ask, following up on Gloria and Chris's question? Chris had mentioned something about she didn't know how she could get that in Portuguese. And we receive a lot of photographs of people thanking us for our nonprofit. And I want to post them on social media because they're wonderful, but they involve children. And I just know that there's no permission that's been given by these parents because they don't speak English.
Yeah.
So we've only been posting the ones with back of the heads. And even it's just, I just don't know what to do with all those wonderful photos and some are video clips. It's like I can't post them or I don't know, what is the legal responsibility there?
It's tricky, especially with children, because you just don't know if someone is going to come back and say, oh, I don't want my a photo of my kid posted online or a video of my kid. You just don't really know. We just live in a time where people are either just, like kind of documenting every moment of their children's lives. And then other parents like just don't want their children to have any social media presence at all. Do you have phone numbers or any way to contact these individuals?
The people who are giving us the photographs are so thankful and so appreciative.
Yeah.
Just, I don't know, even when I talked ESL, I just knew that my families couldn't understand. So I always just did backs of heads, which makes for pretty boring photographs.
Yeah.
All right. So you're agreeing with me. All right. I will continue onward with no facial. Sometimes we might include a nose, but we hope that's not so bad.
Yeah. I wonder if who's gathering the photographs and the videos for you. I just wonder if you ever do like a call to action for videos and photographs, if that's something that you can include in the language there, like say, hey, we're looking for, photos and videos to be featured, on our website, on our social channels, and maybe kind of like incorporating some of the release, into that ask.
That's a good idea. Yeah, I'm going to take your release.
Yeah.
I'm going to try that because then it's connected. But can other organizations take responsibility for the photographs that they're posting of their, patients and students? I don't know. I feel like
in my experience, but I can't say that everyone does this. I've always erred on the side of caution and have tried to ask for permission, especially if it involves a minor. But I think like if there's a way to kind of like front load that, which it kind of goes back to the pre-production and prep, even though this workflow is a little bit different, if there's that call to action of like, hey, we're looking for this material And if you're wanting to submit, you know, a thank you, you know, card with a photo to us, we may put that up on our website or social channels, like some sort of disclaimer.
That's a good idea. Thank you so much. I didn't mean to waste anyone
No,
else's.
no. I think this is, it's all part of it. It's all related, I think. Do we have any other questions? Because I can move on a little bit, but I really want to make sure I'm targeting everyone's questions. Okay.
Deirdre, I just wanted to say, this is one of the best trainings.
Oh, did I lose someone?
I
Oh,
appreciate.
I think you cut out a little bit, but it sounded like you were saying something really nice.
Yeah, I was just saying, I really appreciate your training style. It's very direct, concise, and helpful. So I just wanted to say that.
Oh, thanks. I'm also happy. I mean, I'm also happy to come back and do this again. You know, maybe there's a part 2 to this, you know, like if you all are interested in more of this sort of thing, like, thank you so much for saying that. That means a lot. I was a little nervous about doing this presentation, and I was practicing over the weekend, and it appeared as though I was talking to myself while practicing my script. Yeah, I think there's, another great note in the chat here. A few things. Our centers has a release, and all people signups right from the beginning. Is that enough? That is from Juliet. I think maybe if you modify that sign in to include like a release for photos and videos, I think if you modify that and then people sign that, that's probably like a really efficient way to, you know, to gather materials. And then let's see. Yes, we have all that included. Okay, yeah, I think that's good. And then I think it's also important to reach out to grant sources or to small online donations to request support for translation into constituent languages. Yeah, I think that's important too. You know, we're also at the Loop Lab, you know, we have an application open for a grant program for artists, and we also have that the marketing materials are in English, but they're also in Creole and Spanish, and I do think that's really important to reach everybody. Let's see. What else? Do you want me to talk a little bit more, or do you guys have more questions? Okay, I guess I'll talk. Was there a question that came in there? Deirdre, oh, thank you. Thanks. So I think, you know, what I was going to say is that when you're preparing for, you know, any sort of production, I think location scouting is really important. And this also, you know, it comes down to what we were talking about too, with preparing releases and that sort of thing. Now, if you don't have a big budget or a lot of lights and maybe only a camera, you can find a lot of beautiful locations outdoors. And this option also works well if you're not needing to capture audio. I would say though, if you are capturing audio, it's important to get clean audio, because nothing takes you out of a moment like, you know, audio that's like, you know, has a lot of feedback or things like that. So if you're capturing audio, I like to use a field recorder with a mic that you can get close to the subject. I wouldn't just depend on the mic on your camera, or if you use lav mics, test them first to be sure that they don't rustle on clothing or give feedback. Another thing too with audio, I know I'm kind of jumping to a production element for a second, but people forget audio. So I think it's really important to bring up is that, if you're capturing audio, I would also recommend getting room tone. And what room tone is, it's just taking your microphone and it's recording the environment for like maybe 5 or 10 minutes. And you want to do this with every location that you're shooting. And I think getting that room tone is important because it can really like help you when you're doing sound design, if there's anything that you need to iron out in your audio. And now going back to locations, I would also say that any location that you're unfamiliar with, say if you're shooting somewhere, outside of your organization, you always want to visit the location at the time you plan to shoot, because there could be changes you're not anticipating. Like, for example, the light could hit different at 4 p.m. than at 12 p.m. or there's more people at one time versus the other, and that can affect different elements of your production. I mean, maybe you want like a crowd with a lot of people, or maybe you don't. So it's really important to understand how your location operates at the time that you want to shoot. I would also say, that, and we talked about this a little bit, that unless if there's no one to contact, I would recommend getting a location agreement signed to protect yourself legally, along with the crew deal memos, even if it's people on staff, and then having some sort of talent release, whether it's incorporated into a sign up form or a sign, or if it's a separate release. So I think those are things to think about, as you're prepping and as you're going into production. And I think kind of the last thing that I want to say is that I really believe that storytelling has a way of building community across different audiences, as well as for those who are working in front of the camera and behind the scenes. And I think it's also a great way to show a more inclusive world. And I think that this is a great medium to tell stories that are untold, and to have people working in front of the camera as well as behind the scenes who are historically underrepresented or ignored in society. I think this is digital story can really be a way to bring people together. I really believe that. And I think, another thing that to think about with digital storytelling is accessibility. If you're making a video, make sure, you have captioning as an option. I also think too, making a video with audio description is also great, so everyone can enjoy the experience. I know my video hasn't really been playing, but I want to leave, this is a great video that a colleague of mine made, that has audio description and captions in the video. It's an Apple video that was really well done. And so I highly recommend taking a look at that in terms of making your digital storytelling accessible, which is really important. Does anyone else have any other questions? The floor is open. Oh.
Deirdre, this is fantastic. I would suggest in the future, don't open up by saying I don't really talk. I don't really present, because it's like fooled me. So you were fantastic, very engaging.
Oh, thanks. I mean, I'm someone that I do have to prepare for presentations like this. I can't just go in and wing it, but I also want it to be a good experience for all of you, because you all are also taking an hour and a half out of your afternoon, and I want to make it worth your while. Thanks.
It was really good. Really good. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I also want to thank, everyone that is working with me. We've got, Dominique, and we've got Eliza and Jack. Did I get everybody who's working behind the scenes? Because there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes to make these presentations go well. And so, shout out to them. Okay. I'm glad that this is being recorded, so then it can be sent, for those that weren't able to make it. And, I'm happy to do a part 2 if there's room for me to come back, just let me know.
That would be wonderful.
Okay.
Sure.
All right.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you very much, everybody. Good luck.
Thank you.